Not to say that like heart lasts are out of touch with their values necessarily, but there could be a sense of like not realizing how important they are.
Yeah,
so then we have that
exactly.
retroactive shame.
Exactly. Yeah.
That heart types and even heart middles have like are much more sensitive about.
There's a kind of like identity masturbatory quality too.
Yes, that's what it is. With heart last is that you're underestimating how much what you're doing in the world could affect you in terms of shame.
The big hormone enneagram.
I'm John Lekovich, 415, sexual self-pres, 458 Trifix.
I'm David Gray, self-pres sexual, 9 with 1 wing, 974 Trifix.
What up, it's Emeka. I'm an 8-wing-7, sexual self-pres with 854 fixes.
Hi, I'm Alexandra. I'm a social self-preservation 9-wing-1, 963 Trifix.
Like and subscribe on Apple and Spotify, and leave us a review. If you want to support the show with a donation, you can find us on Venmo at Big Hormone and paypal.me/Big Hormone. What else in life will you get this opportunity to hang out with species like us?
With to be the only social type in a room full of social, but in a virtual room full of social blinds.
You're lucky. You're welcome.
So lucky. Yeah,
Just
it's a growth point, really.
You get to just hang out with unique individuals versus the boring sexual blinds that infest the world.
Wow.
Yes.
We didn't have to go there.
We can go there.
I was going to say that if you had a social instinct, you would know not to say that, but
No. It would be worse.
If you had a social instinct,
it would be worse.
It would just be with gusto.
I'd pick something else.
Yeah,
Just
right.
think of us as specimens, Alexandra. Just like, look at these freaks in these
rare
birds.
No, you guys are just my work. You're just my inner work.
There you go.
Contend with you guys.
Don't forget that you fell in love once you entered this circle. So
this whole world that was created by these freaks.
Yeah. We laid the groundwork.
I know, yeah. What does that say about me?
You wouldn't even know yourself without us.
God.
You'd be a lost Bermuda in the wild.
Yeah.
With
Alexandra,
some DJ nothing wondering what to do with her life.
Alexandra,
we saved you.
Jesus Christ.
Alexandra,
listen, I did not come here to be
every single day you should thank us for saving
you're nothing.
David.
You're nothing without us. Nothing.
Oh my God.
You shouldn't even have started this.
No.
We were being modest and humble.
God damn. Who needs 2 fixers when you have the toxicity of a 4 fixer instead? Whatever.
You wouldn't be anything without us.
Whatever. God.
Yeah.
Okay.
That goes for everyone who's listening to this podcast.
And I'm going to want to collect on this debt at some point. All you owe us for your growth.
For your growth. Jesus.
So yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome
for
to
all
be
the
in
growth,
our presence.
all the growth.
No, the therapy bills you guys have charged up. Insane.
All the growths you've grown from being around us, all this festering,
all the development.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's been a real practice on just staying centered.
Yeah. Owning your
location. Don't want
to
wash myself into that nonsense. Just stay here.
Yeah. That's what we provide.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, thank you. Okay. So today.
It sounds like you're leading things, Alexandra.
Finally.
Ahead.
I know. That's weird. Emeka, okay, if I'm going to lead things, then I'm going to need nothing from you, okay?
You're going to get a lot.
What's your mic at? 1 to 2? Please make that so.
It's just my energy.
Bring it down, 0 to 1. It's a little loud still. It's still a little loud. A little lower, please.
It's my personality. Can't turn that down.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Anyway. Yeah, so today... I feel weird saying today, but
why?
It is weird.
I don't know. It sounds a little teacherly, but I guess that's the vibe.
You are the teacher.
Anyway, okay, great. So what I've been thinking about comes from a conversation that started with Ikram and Joseph, and then eventually Lewis was added into the mix. This was for Prince's Court. So by the time this comes out, people will be able to like go back and reference those conversations to like see the whole progression. So now I'm kind of bringing it to you guys because it's really brought up a lot. And I'm wondering how you guys relate to it being heart last also. So basically the talk was, it started off as kind of a general thing, just like a kind of general topic to talk about and to just kind of riff off of, which was each last center and talking about what it feels like to be, the center orders or whatever, like its own stacking in a certain way. What is it like to be heart last? What does it look like to heart types or to heart middles to perceive heart lasts, all that kind of stuff. And then, you take that through all the different orders, what are body lasts like, head lasts like, all that kind of stuff.
And sorry to interrupt you, baby, but just to because heart last is kind of like a new term for us, right? So like we're talking in Trifix, like you have your dominant type, and then you have the two other types of your two other fixes have a different order.
Yeah, it's just the order of your Trifix. Yeah.
So you guys are all body first, and then mind second, and then heart last.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we all. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I didn't connect that actually, that it's all three.
We have something in common.
And then there's Johnny Boy.
Then there's the
That's
heart
our
social,
opposite.
Social 9 moment.
And body last.
Aw, we're all the same.
It's cute. It's cute.
John's still opposite though, so he gets to stay in his 4 safety zone. Anyway, yeah, so we were talking about that, and I think up until this point, I had just seen it as like, honestly, same way that I saw the stackings for a while, which was just like an order of prioritization, but with real, like, when I was first feeling out what sexual blind meant, I just saw it as like, oh, that's just the one I don't care about as much. It didn't have like deep implications. And through this conversation, I'm seeing that being heart last kind of does have deep implications, and it's still something I'm exploring. So anyway, yeah, I'm wanting to kind of get your guys' feedback and just like have a more full conversation on it. Some of the stuff that came up was this idea that the image center is constantly curating their own aesthetic, not just a visual aesthetic, but also energetically. And John, you can help me kind of fill in the gaps here.
You jump in and correct me where I'm wrong, but one of the things I appreciated in what you were talking about is you were talking about image in a new way.
Yeah.
Because often, like when you guys will talk about image, right or wrong, the impression I'll get is sometimes you're seeing it as the persona, or just like the way you see yourself, right? It's like just kind of, and that is part of the image, but there was a way that you were relating to image, not as just how you think you look to other people or yourself, but like a kind of tending to your identity.
Yeah, yes. a cultivated sense of self. Yeah. And I also, so there's a lot of implications or a lot of things to tease out from that, because I used to think that was maybe a sexual blind thing where like that was stopping me from like curating some kind of thing. I used to think that it was like 4 versus 3 versus 2, like the hexad versus the attachment in the heart space. But I do kind of see as like a through line that people that have heart last, they are really processing the world through like a sensory experience. They are just like existing and finding ways to like keep their comfort or vitality or life force calibrated however they need it to, and then processing it through the head center, which is like perceptions, analysis, directionality, all that kind of stuff. And then there is the like, what is the color palette of like who I am? Have I developed these like key points that make me myself? And it specifically is what I've been kind of picking up on is that one of the implications of being heart last is that I have all of these different pieces that I consider a part of me, but the heart center being my last center, I forget to like cultivate it more. So they become these kind of shelved interests that don't get to see a lot of cultivation, that don't get to like bloom, because presenting myself the way that I experience myself is not necessarily my first priority. Is that making sense? Like,
no, it does. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I mean, one way to put it, and you can tell me if you guys might see it this way, but like, it's kind of like it's not just cultivating stuff, but it's like kind of looping it together in a way that's like, what kind of personal meaning does this have for me as an entity or something?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like all three of y'all are like super talented and like have things, right? Like that are your things, even just in terms of the Enneagram. Like you have your different perspectives, you have different things you bring. But and tell me, Alexander, if this is like we didn't talk a whole lot about this before this, so like
Yeah.
I'm still kind of getting the feel for how she's seeing things, um, but like you guys, like even though you're all geniuses at the Enneagram, there's a certain way that like you don't quite stand in that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of like it's like a thing. It's just a thing you got, rather, and not saying you have to like make Enneagram your identity or something like that, but like
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
a certain certain way, like I'm having trouble kind of like finding words for it, but do you kind of get what I'm
Well,
gesturing?
Yeah. It's I think the way I experience it when I look at someone like Joseph, who's a social type and a hard type, is that his interests have to be somewhat filed away and organized in terms of like, okay, if you're looking at the Joseph who has an identity, he's seeing his identity as something that he's curating all the time. And so
Mm-hmm.
let's say
Right.
he becomes interested in the Enneagram or Michael teachings or whatever. It's like that interest now has to be fit into the identity in a way that other people can understand. Oh, I'm not just interested in this weird thing just because whatever. It's because this is a part of who I am and this is how you should see it.
Mm-hmm.
And so with
And he's
Heart
curating
Last,
the picture of it.
right.
Sort of. Yeah.
He's not leaving it to chance. And so it's not just social blind, it's also a Heart Last thing where it's like, I just do things and I'm not so invested in making sure I form or
Fits
curate
into your Mm-hmm.
how you see it. And maybe there's like it's beyond just social blind. It's another like, you're not really curating other people's perception of your identity as well.
Well, like
Yeah.
being a social blind image type, like I don't experience myself curating for some kind of audience or like how somebody could conceptualize my identity based on this. But I think one way is that my heart thing related to identity, and Alexander again, correct me, is like like with my interests, like I am my interests.
Right.
Like I like become my interests. And so then like
Mhm.
all my fucking stuff around here in my room and all this shit. And, it's all kind of like all my artwork, it's all like identity reinforcement shit all the time.
Right. It's reaffirming stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Where-
there's a certain way that I'm like mirroring myself to myself in a way that's kind of like, I see it as like waveforms like colliding over and over again, so it's very whatever. And I'm kind of doing that on some, I don't know how to kind of describe what that is, but I'm doing that all the time for myself. Whereas I can see Heart Last, they can have something really distinct, but I see like it's sometimes like their thing is not like front and center of their personhood
I
in
mean,
a certain way.
one way I'd say it, and it's something I think Emma and I have talked about relative to like how we are relative to the sexual instinct, is it's that we're expecting our thing to come through in our beingness, in our energetic signature, something like that. It's
Mhm.
it's that kind of thing where it doesn't. There's not a. Yeah, there's
Like
not.
a direct cultivation of it.
Yeah, and it's not
Yeah.
as much. It is, like our specialties and expertise or whatever are a significant part of who we are, but there's, I guess, the lack of compulsion to, I don't know, illustrate that or
Mhm.
something, or, yeah,
Well,
just,
Or just
I
like
think David,
pursue it even.
I think like, your difficulty writing your book is kind of a part of that in a way,
Yeah.
because it's like your book is not just getting your ideas down, but it's kind of an expression of who you are.
Yeah.
It's an expression
stepping
of
into the role. partly.
stepping into your role, but it's like even a little bit more internal than that. Like writing the book, like, I mean, when I wrote my book, for me, it wasn't just like, I'm going to write a book and now I'm going to be known as John the book guy. It was like figuring myself out. And I think that's the part of hardness
that's interesting.
that, like it's like when you're social blind and you see Social Instinct and you're like, oh, social is just chit chat, but then it's actually this whole other thing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, I can imagine, like in this, I know we're sort of feeling in the dark, but like,
Right.
It's like heart last, I think, can see heart and be like, oh, it's just how you represent yourself to other people, or how you curate yourself. And like, sure, there's elements of that, but it's like there's a kind of like identity masturbatory quality to
Yes, that's
Heart
what it
Center.
is.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say too, because like a lot of this could be perceived, and maybe we can get into this conversation too, but a lot of this could be perceived as just like, oh, it's just John's a 4 and it's a hexad heart image type, and 2 has the same kind of ease. But even with 3 cores are obsessed with reaffirming their identity to themselves. They get lost in, they get like swayed in like the field of gaze, to use Josh's language. But it still is like a really strong fixation on like, what does this mean about me? What does this mean about me?
Yes.
Is this perceived in a way? And that is like the quality, of course, as a 3 fixer. I have to use that one to relate to. But that reaffirming of identity thing is the thing I realized I don't have a firm grip on. Like, I'm just not going through the world taking in my likes and dislikes and then having to update what that must mean about my sense of self and my identity.
Go ahead.
And then there's the added part of just like, I just really almost never think about like painting my self-portrait. And that's kind of how I've been perceiving it the most, of just like, I don't really think I've worked on like paint. This is obviously metaphorical, and I think this is Joseph's language, but I just have not considered that is like a direct expression of a feeling into who I am and expressing who I am. I think it's just like, as a body type, I just kind of take that for granted. I'm like, well, but this is me.
Yeah, that
I'm
phrase
just like
you
a
used
lump.
there, what does this mean about me? What does this say about me? That's totally foreign.
Right. Yeah.
For me.
Okay. That's interesting to know.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot that I thought was just like, maybe it's just 9, maybe it's triple attachment, maybe it's sexual blind. But now I'm kind of seeing like, no, I know 7s, and with 9 middles, and then 3 lasts that also have this kind of thing where they're just not really thinking. It's almost like image last or heart last doesn't think to access the image space or the heart space in a direct way. Instead, it has to get filtered through all of this stuff indirectly, which can cut off access to like a direct sense of self.
So I think 2 things come up. I mean, one, Emeka, like, in a previous relationship, when somebody gave you a lot of
I was just going to
reinforcement,
mention that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really saw myself in that relationship. And I remember after that relationship came to an end, one of the conversations we had was that this was kind of like a vulnerability that I did not anticipate or expect, because I wasn't doing this for myself. And so this person unintentionally hit on something that was a potent, leverage point, where they saw me in a certain way that I wasn't seeing myself. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so one thing that I made a point to do after that relationship was like, okay, I actually like spent probably like the next year and a half, maybe it took about a year of like, I know myself, but I haven't specified so many things that were coming up or emerging for me in that relationship. Like, I have a lot of self-judgments and my own personal philosophies on how people should be. And I have all these things that I'm not aware about myself, in the sense that there is a self-portrait and it's very distinct, but I'm letting it come up through experience. And I need to see myself. I don't want to ever have a situation where someone comes along and they mirror something to me that on some level I'm not aware of, but it is a real thing. And I'm like, oh my God. And so I spent a lot of time just narrowing down what are my long-term values? Like, what is it that I hate or I find annoying about people? What are some of my own judgments about the way I think people should be? What are some of the things that are minimum base level requirements in order for me to get close to people or to be attracted to someone, I think I started to realize like how much that stuff influenced what I was attracted to. So maybe I might be initially attracted to someone, but if these requirements are not there, then I'm going to hate you. And so like I need to actually look at someone not just through social, but also through my own lens of identity. And so, yeah, it took a long time, and it's something that I spent a lot of time like narrowing down, but it kind of gave me a sense of, oh, it's really, I'm already doing this filtering thing, but if I can really see myself, it becomes really obvious on the front end. No, like this is the no, and it's not like, oh, let's see how this goes, or let's check it out, or let's give this a chance.
Are you saying something along the lines of, I mean, this is something I'd say about myself, is that despite, and I don't know how we work this into what we're putting together here, but like I have a pretty strict aesthetic of personality that I'm adhering to. Right?
Yes.
There's certain things that to me aren't a good look, right?
Yes.
That are personality things, right? And I'm pretty fucking rigid when it comes down to it about that, right? But it's got a quality, let's see, what might be nonetheless fit into what we're saying is it's almost like, it's cat-like in the sense that it's like a cat is grooming themselves for themselves, kind of.
Right.
It has some of that feel to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what the fuck is all this, right? And like,
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never been to your place, David, but like Emeka, your place has always been pretty blank.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying artwork on the wall, but that's just like one example. Like I don't know
I'm similar. I've got stuff on the wall, but it's kind of.
You're more of a visual person, but I have my own things
mean,
in other arenas. You're not going to necessarily see anything on the wall, but I have like music is a big one for me, or other artwork that I, there's different ways that. One thing I figured out, at least one of the exercises that I landed on, is that you kind of have to reinforce yourself to yourself, and so I do that through. I mean, I do it anyway, but it's just not happening on a regular enough basis. And so there's like, okay, what are some of your baseline sort of identity touchstones, the things that remind yourself, oh yeah, this is why I like to create, this is why I like, and to sort of like reinforce that. And I've heard like an example of this, me and OD have talked about like artist dates. This is something that we got from, I forget, maybe he got from one of these books about artwork. And it's like a day where you do nothing but just explore whatever it is that inspires you to create. And that's a way to reinforce, like, why is it that you love art? And so like having some like examples of art that reinforce that identity, I think is another example of this.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think also there's the piece, around that aesthetic of personality might be included in what you were saying earlier, Emeka, where there are certain styles of personality in other people that you don't want to be associated with.
Yes.
Because that's reflecting on your aesthetic.
Yeah. I had some
Yeah.
experiences of shame where, just a few times where I was like seeing myself in social space or
me too.
next to a person and what that would mean. It sort of helped me to see like, where is that coming from? Where is this sort of feeling of I can't believe I allowed myself to be associated with this? And so that means like there's an ocean of values that are that this is hitting on. So let me like unearth those values.
Yeah, and I do think the values come from the heart center. I think it's a specific, because I mean, what's more personal than your values? That in a lot of ways does define your aesthetic self. It does define like your likes and dislikes. It defines all of your choices in a certain way. Yeah, so I like that you said that your specific value sense. Not to say that like heart lasts are out of touch with their values necessarily, but there could be a sense of like not realizing how important they are. Then we have that retroactive shame.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That heart types and even heart middles have like are much more sensitive about and are much faster to react and are trying to like, what's that word when you're trying to avoid it ahead of time? I guess that.
Preemptively.
The word. Preemptively. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the
mitigate. There it is.
Mitigate.
I also feel like Heart Last arrives at some of their values a bit through trial and error.
Yeah.
You know, going through different experiences. Whereas, like, because I've known a lot of my neurotic stuff is like I have this, like, you know, identity, and it's getting put into the world, and you know, and it's like, oh no, I don't want to be in the world. I want to be in my identity, right? But whereas I'll find that Heart Last will kind of like experiment to figure out, you know, like what's in that identity core, you know, what's in that value core. And so it's kind of like, oh, I'll try this. Oh, no, that's not good. That doesn't work for me. Whereas I feel like Heart First people, generally, it's like, oh, I come with built in of what I'm looking for. And, you know, so I was thinking, Alexandra, like, because I imagine anybody listening would be like, well, you know, what the, like, I'm not really still clear on what this is. So, like, what's an example of, like, the cost or the negative aspects of neglecting the heart center in the way that you're speaking to? Because you got been alluding to it with, like, shame and stuff, or, like, retroactive shame or something, but, like...
Yeah, that's a good question, and I don't have anything, like, prepared for it, but I have these, I don't know, kind of indirect, I don't know, maybe teasers on that, because I don't have, like, the meat of it yet. But, like, one thing I was thinking about after the call on Prince's Court, after this most recent one, was I was thinking of, like, everybody's image is actually already there, you know, whether or not it's being cultivated, blah, blah, blah. But there is a certain way that my experience as a Heart Last is like, I actually kind of am unaware of what it is. Like, I know, like I said, I have a shame retroactively when I realize I've been in like a circle of friends that don't align with me, or like I just haven't been in the thing that does feel aligned to me or does feel like really congruent with who I feel I am. I can't remember the rest of that sentence, but one of the things I was thinking of after the call is like, okay, let me take all of the things that I know are me so far. What image does that put together? Like astrology, I'm a musician. I was an opera student and I was really big into choirs. I know all of that falls under music. Even your collages, in a certain sense, like, when they feel right to you, you know? And I've noticed with my collages, there is a kind of soft, kind of morose, kind of quality to it of like, oh, that's also my image center there. So I'm not totally sure if that answers the question, but I'm kind of, there's been this question in my mind of like, oh, I need to put my image together and like really be living in that more, because otherwise the whole body type blob thing really does hold up, and like the head type, just like clusterfuck, will hold up, that kind of stuff. It's like
that's a Heart Last head type, is a clusterfuck. Yeah, totally. Sorry. But one of the things, like when we started dating, and I went to your place, you kind of like, and you saw mine. Like, I think one of the early things you said was something about not having like stuff that reflected you.
Yeah.
And at first we thought that was sexual blindness, and there's maybe some of that in there, but there just wasn't a lot of like, and I know you're more audio than I'm more visual and stuff like that, but there wasn't a lot of identity reinforcement stuff. It wasn't like at that time. I think it's a little different now, but at the time, based on what you like looked around your place, you wouldn't be able to be like, oh, this is the kind of person Alexandra is.
Right. Yeah.
Based on books and art and whatever you had around.
Yeah. Or not enough of it is really what it was.
Yeah.
And of course, like that's an example very specific to you, because you are a very like stuff oriented person. But even in other things, like a thing that I see with John, being heart first, and I see it with other heart types too in different ways. Of course, the other heart types I know are 3s, and they do it in a more indirect kind of like anxious way in my perception. But one of the things that John does that I see as a heart type thing now and not a sexual thing is that he like really, really prioritizes that image reinforcement thing. Like having to paint and having to write, he just has to do. Even if there's not like a long-term goal with it, if it's not being put to some kind of practical use, but it's just like, this is me, I have to do it. And if I don't do it, if he doesn't have time doing that, he starts to get, he starts to get a little unnerved. Maybe
Pent
that's not
up.
the right word. Pent up.
One of the ways I'm understanding this is that the thing that I can do as an assertive type is I'll have an experience and then I'll want to go to the next experience. And what happens is there can be a backlog of things that I've experienced that I haven't filed away somewhere in terms of reorganizing, like, how does this make me feel? How do I see myself differently because of this experience? And so there's a time where you have to kind of like check in with yourself to sort of like, one, not only reinforce this is who I am, but this is who I am with this new input, this new experience. How does this all fit together? And so what might happen is I don't end up doing that until some mishap or something stops me in my path to make me like, okay, let me go back and reorganize and reinforce and file things away where they belong. Usually after a zone, like I'll have like a bunch of impressions and that's like a good time to sort of like basically just reflect on everything, reflect on yourself in light of everything you've experienced and make sure that, all right, here's where I'm going. This is what I'm about. This is why it inspires me, all that kind of shit. How do I feel about this? How do I feel about, does this fit me and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. There's a little bit of overlap in this, which is interesting to hear you talk about it with you being sleep last. There's a little bit of overlap.
That's specifically why I've been doing this.
Okay, yeah. But that's interesting too, because I've been thinking about it in terms of my consume last also. Like something that Joseph said again on that call that you guys will hear is that he will like take in an impression of just like a shirt he didn't think that he liked, but now he likes. And now he has to go and filter that through like, what does it mean about me that I like this shirt now? How do I reconstitute my whole sense of self to fit this new impression in? And it's that thing that I'm like, oh, that gives context to what consume is.
Yes.
Even in OPS of just it's taking in of new and then well, I guess it's a combo of the taking in is consume and then the sleep is like organizing it into
what it means. Yeah.
One thing too, I don't know if we've already kind of side glanced this or not yet on anything that's been said, but like I've run into over the last few years, I guess, that the aesthetic that personality aesthetic that I have, or aesthetic of being almost, I significantly don't realize that there's huge chunks of other stuff that people are seeing about me and maybe even seeing about my values and maybe even seeing about like my heart or, my whatever. And I just, it's, I want to fight them and say, no, you're wrong. I'm not those things. I mean, it's nothing insulting or whatever that they're saying, generally speaking, but it's just like, but I'm just not. So I guess part of what I'm getting at is the inaccuracy of perceiving yourself being a piece of the heart last thing, maybe.
Here's one thing.
Like heart last +4 specifically to me.
Yeah.
One thing that I experienced about that I didn't like is that, yes, other people can mirror to you certain things you don't see about yourself, but it's not going to be exactly what I'm experiencing about me. So for example, it's like you guys can notice certain things about me, but it's going to be a sliver of the full picture. And so what it felt like is you need to see yourself distinctly so that when someone mirrors to you an aspect of yourself, you're not like, oh my gosh, like that's so great. And, you sort of like take that on, not to say that you take it on, but it's like you let that influence or your self-image too much because you're like, oh, if they're seeing something, maybe it's not really going to be the full picture. Like maybe you guys are noticing something about me. It's like, okay, maybe you're seeing part of the picture, but if I haven't processed that part of myself, then it becomes something that I'm like, well, what is that? And is that me? And so it feels like this is work that you have to do yourself. Otherwise, other people might influence your self-image more than they should.
I think a piece to going with Alexandra's thought, though, there around forefix also is to factor in that we're gonna as forefixers, we're gonna have that reflex to say, no, you're not quite
not right.
getting
Yeah.
me. You're not quite, you know what I mean? And
yeah, for sure.
like that's just like literally reflex as to wince away from somebody, seeing you. Well, you're just not going to accept that anybody's seeing you as well as you see yourself or whatever. Stuff
right.
like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Where the difference with the three fixers, with the three fixer, even last, like me, I think there's almost an over eagerness to be like, well, how do you see me? You know, how can I, what is true about what you're seeing so that I can like start to integrate that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say another facet too is that there's a thing about when you see yourself that these different parts of yourself are not like disjointed islands that sometimes haphazardly come together. Like it kind of makes me think of something like an OPS tidal wave where it's like if I'm not like kind of checking in all the parts of my identity, some experience can suddenly bring out suddenly create some kind of eruption in one part of my identity or another, or I am failing to include this part of my identity to keep maybe like a dynamic going, or if I'm an assertive type, like maybe like I'm on some kind of kick, I'm on some kind of wave where I keep doing something and I have to keep a certain part of my identity at bay to, I mean, it's kind of, let's see, how do I
think I know what you're getting at.
Without going into what we did, like when we talked last time.
You can if you want.
I won't go into specifics, but just there was a thing where we were working on like this kind of like this like bad image, and then this like new part of your identity came in, or this like old, this like about goodness came in, and it sort of felt like that, where it was like, oh, there's this thing that's actually really important, but it's been over here a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'll see that with like, I'm kind of putting it together as I'm speaking, but like I'll see that with Heart Last is like, I'm like, oh, I already see this in you.
Yeah.
I already see this in you, and it's sort of like you have to like retrieve different parts of yourself in a certain way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have to like go through some bad shit for those those parts of self to get like punched in the face enough to like to get woken up and put together.
Yeah, I mean, without going into the whole thing of what we did, one of the things that happened in the breathwork session I did with John is that I had I guess an abstract image of an aspect of myself that was like at my back, let's say flat, right? And that it had always been there, and it came up and into my chest, and was three-dimensional and and alive, and vital and vibrant with life kind of feeling. And that to me, it's only just now clicking that is also partly feels like heart center and image and so forth, like it's coming to the front, right? So it can be seen, right? That kind of feeling.
Yeah.
One thing that the way this is hitting me is that with Heart Last is that you're underestimating how much what you're doing in the world could affect you in terms of shame.
Yeah.
Big time.
That's
And
really good.
Big time.
And so I had these moments where I would get a flash of shame.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of thing that sort of inspired this sort of like, holy shit, like, not that I don't know who I am, but I'm just doing things that don't align with who I am. Like there's a me there's a me that really cares about certain things, and I'm acting against that me.
Yeah. Right.
And so
yes, bingo.
That's interesting right there.
And so it felt like I need to fucking define this. I mean, as much as I can to like bring it up so I can look at it. And one of the things I've done is, okay, there are certain things that were permissible before. I need to be explicit about, this is actually something that you're not okay with.
Yeah.
And you cannot repeat this action or you cannot repeat this affiliation or, like you have these standards and you need to bring those standards to the forefront. Because you're going to run up against this wall of disgust, and why keep repeating that? So it feels like Heart Last is having a sort of numbness for shame of how what you're doing is affecting that internal value. So you just can power through a bunch of shit that you don't really give a fuck about, or that you're going to end up disgusted by. And then one day you get like a hit of that shame. You're like, what have I done? That's
exactly. Yeah. And it's not moral. It's not like a moral thing. It's about,
it's
does
your
this
personal
resonate?
value. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Does this resonate with who I am?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Totally. Yeah. And the reason that will happen too is because we are generally trying to solve problems through our core center.
Yes.
And so we forget that there's like a middle or, a secondary and a tertiary center. And, of course, with in our case being Heart Last, there have been a bunch of times where I thought I was having a boundary issue or a sensory issue or even an orientation issue that really could have been immediately remedied if I could just like, oh, I don't need to fucking understand this or try to get comfortable with it because it is not in alignment with myself.
Right.
Who fucking cares if I can't make this work for me? Which is kind of interesting because I see that in Body Last all the time. Where I'll see them making like a stink around like orientation or around like an image or a value thing when it's really just like, oh, your boundaries are you're just uncomfortable, like relax. So this would be the opposite. And of course with the majority of the world more than likely being Heart Last, I feel like this is like important information. Remembering your values and acting in accordance to them, not just in like a body type kind of like one-ish way, but just like, remembering your values, integrating that into your actions. Of course, as body types, I'm going to be focusing on actions, and then also expressing them. I think that I'm thinking of astrology too, because values is ruled by Venus, but then the heart is ruled by Leo, and Leo rules expression, like the sun is an expressive.
And all that too.
Yes. So I think what the heart cores have is that they have a fixation around expressing themselves the way they want to be seen, the way they want to see themselves. Of course, that gets distorted with frustration, attachment, whatever the third one is. And I forget. Yeah. Rejection. Yeah. Who cares about them?
You're rejected.
We're not here anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like what you're saying, like as a heart type with Body Last, the humiliation of having to like go to the laundromat, right? Is like not in accord with like this inner felt sense of whatever I am, it's oh, I gotta go to the laundromat and shits and whatever, and it's like body types seem much more like this is just what I do, it's like I'm just doing my thing. And, so for me, I mean, I've had to getting into my body has been just everything. And, it's just like, I'm still me, even if I'm like choosing what kind of like, toilet paper I need to buy, It's like,
right.
Yeah, that's interesting. That would be an interesting talk to go the other way too, because body center isn't necessarily just actions, but it's just like your boundaries, your sense of comfort, your sense of embodiment, all that kind of stuff.
Your
so I'm wondering how many. Well, okay, yeah, but I'm thinking in terms of like having it as a last center. I'm wondering how often an image type feels aligned with themselves, but their value but their boundaries are being really disrespected.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But their sense of autonomy is just like nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
That's so really I don't know. That's like I feel like it's just like a new thing to like really explore. Head type, I just haven't really given that much attention. But being a body type and then being Heart Last, I feel like that's really come online for me with this.
I feel like this is like could be a whole new deal.
I think so too. Yeah.
It's interesting to think about the world as sort of I mean, let's just assume that most people are 6s and 9s and most people are going to be Heart Last. And you think about the way people in mass perceive the events of the world as kind of like a heart last phenomenon, in that we're just thinking about, okay, what does this do? How does this affect my boundaries? But no one's really thinking, like, heinous shit happens in history because people can't reflect on what does this say about who I am.
Totally.
There is
Partly
a
that
trailer
it feels
for
weak or something. You know what I mean? To be
It's
like
very
that.
vulnerable.
It's because it's your heart. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
and you're
Yeah.
willing to like almost sacrifice yourself pres well-being because, like, I mean, like, for example, the Israelis just genociding the Palestinians, right? Like, if they thought about what does this mean about me as now that I'm, a genocider after having this whole, experience of genocide in our own past. Now we're the genociders. There's not like, there doesn't seem to be any connecting the dots there in terms of what does it mean about me. And I'd have to like allow, the Palestinians to like live and all the complications that means, but it's like it'd be standing in, identity rather than just my well-being and how, what does this make sense?
Like basically things like war, you need heart last in order to like do things like that. You can't go out and do like really brutal things to other human beings if you're really allowing it to affect you, so that you kind of have to turn off that heart vulnerability.
Yeah, one thing that leaders are doing is they're kind of deciding for the heart lasters, which is most people, where their heart should be. And then the heart laster sixes and nines are saying, yeah, that's what I believe.
Yeah.
Those are my values.
It's indirect too, because they're making it a boundary issue or a like an orientation issue.
Right.
And so the value kind of gets decided. So the value kind of gets decided for you because you're preoccupied with boundary stuff or with orientation stuff.
With building a beautiful wall. Yeah.
So that's one thing. That's why I felt like it was a vulnerability to address, because someone might come along and mirror aspects of yourself that ring true. Maybe because of their own aims and goals for what they want from a relationship with you. And if you haven't done that processing yourself to have the full picture of who you are, because we're like shame last, like numbing ourselves to the shame, like someone gets you a hit of your self-image or what you should care about. And if you're not really centered there, you can get pulled into some shit.
Yeah. Yeah, this is Josh's language too, but he calls the order of the centers. He describes them as being Russian doll nested within each other. And so this is just something I'm wanting to like re-emphasize, that like, yes, the risk of being heart last is that we will get too caught up in body center stuff or head center stuff, or for the opposite, head types will get stuck with head center stuff and then blah blah blah. But that, to use this like example of war, that's what's happening. People are, it's like, I don't know, I can't think of specifics, but it will be pitched as a body center thing. Everyone will be distracted with the body centerness of it and forget to factor in their values of like, okay, maybe you should fucking be uncomfortable in order to stay aligned with your values. You know what I'm saying?
The metaphor of Josh's thing around orientation and mapping and boundary, right? It's like literally the land, or figuratively the land, right? I mean, kind of both, right? Where it's like, what should the map look like? Where's the boundary? And all of that shit. And it's not referencing, your heart's intuition about that stuff.
Another thing that I'm thinking of is, I experienced with all three of y'all, all of y'all being a lot more sensitive and emotional and
that's not true.
And all that bullshit than I think. And I think now that, like, since we've known each other a while, y'all have come all a long way to see it more. But I mean, I think that y'all have all, like, I saw that shit fucking immediately,
Yeah.
And and like, I think y'all have had a process, all of y'all in your different ways, of like recognizing how sensitive and emotional actually you are, and like having certain needs that you didn't know you had, like, just like with Alexandra, like think back to Making Nine Great Again when you're with your ex and we were talking about like, I want to know your emotional location, and you were like, oh, I could never be with a 4. And compared to now, like how
you weren't in touch with your real heart there.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah.
Your
My
real
heart wants to
values.
be drowned in love. Yes.
Yeah, well, like how lovey-dovey you are, how
Mhm.
big emotional you are, all these ways that you're saying, like, I didn't know I was this emotional. I didn't know I needed to be met this way and this way and this way. You know, it's like, I mean, it's
Yeah.
like a whole other thing. It's like the kind of metaphor of islands of self that I was using earlier. It was like you had these islands, but they were kind of like really drifting away from each other. And now a lot of them at least are a lot closer together and you can access them more. And so it's like, you know, the way you describe yourself previously is just like very, very different than how you describe yourself now.
Yeah. Yeah. I
What-
thought I was like super chill and easygoing.
And like needed a lot of distance and
Yeah.
like you didn't, I mean, it seems like you didn't think you were this lovey-dovey, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought like I said, I thought, yeah, like you said, I thought I needed more space. Thought I needed somebody to be like be busy all the time because I needed that space, you know.
You needed space
That
from
kinda
your
stuff.
ex. That's what you needed.
Yeah. He's giving me a lot of space now.
Yeah. One thing I'll throw in to complicate things, although I think I can weave it into this nonetheless, is like shame has been a huge thing for me, really, like all my life. I mean, big shame. You know, from earliest childhood, just being ashamed about my existence in numerous ways is the brief way to say it. But I think the the antidote, just feeling into it intuitively, it just immediately rings true, would have been this whole time expressive of who I am in that kind of heart center way, and just making just being declarative around what I do value and those kinds of
I
things.
resonate with that.
That's just like ding, ding, ding. That rings a bell for me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, David, like the last zone we had, you kind of like let yourself take up space and be seen and be, and like you were like, it was like the David show, you know, and it was great. And but it was like different than I've ever seen you, you know, in all the years knowing each other.
Yeah.
It was like you were letting parts of your personality show and you were being kind of like diabolical and crazy and all over the place and funny and goofy and rolling around and stuff. And it was like, and, you know, and the way you were playing guitar and the way that you were like forcing Emeka to do shit, you know, it was just like, oh, wow. You know, but it was like, you know, it's kind of like what Alexandra is saying of like, I felt like that was you, you know, like, all right, body situation, orientation. All right, now I can like be seen and express who I am. You know, kind of felt like
a
that.
certain kind of Maslow's hierarchy type of thing, almost.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and Emeka's got the same thing. And when Emeka, you know, does that, like Emeka's super fucking soft. You know?
That's right.
You know, it's like,
and he allows himself to go to the back rooms.
Yeah, just think of how you are at the zone where you're just sitting there like a big lump, and you're just like smiling and like taking care of everybody, you know, and like sure everybody's fed and all that shit, you know. Yeah, creamy. Yeah, creamy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's even something to be said that all three of us go to heart types in integration.
That's true.
2 and 3.
Oh,
that's a good point. Yeah. I think one thing that comes up for me with this as an assertive type is that I can get caught up in, you know, this is the next thing to do. Like, this is the next thing to assert on. And so like a new opportunity comes along, is like, I can do that. There's like a sense of I can do anything that comes along, and there's a you're not really, but should I, or do I want to? Am I even into this? And so I've had to really work on catching myself and trying to use different filters to slow myself down. Of I need to let this sit with me long enough for me to find, how do I feel about this? Like, because part of the assertiveness thing is to push away from that, just to get it done. You can just keep asserting, because if you actually allowed something to affect you in that way, it would slow you down.
With nines, I bet it's like, what can I get comfortable with? Is there without checking on my identity? Yeah. Interesting.
One thing too, stemming off of my last comment, is like my sense. I might have said it before on the pod, but my sense of what I'm doing with people in general in kind of almost all contexts. I mean, this is in the background, not conscious at all, but is that I'm tricking everybody, right? Like I don't know, just I don't know, I'm pretending in my day job to be a professional. I'm pretending even with you guys to, on one level, I'm pretending to be a person who knows about the Enneagram, and I'll do these purple colored wizard magic, and hey, I dazzled them. Okay, so I can stay in and with them for a little while, maybe because I tricked them. You know what I mean? That's not the entirety, but there's that. That's a piece.
That's interesting.
In my relationships.
So it's almost like the full self isn't really. I mean, I kind of get what you're saying. It's like there's a disconnect between the things that I do and who I really am, and like it's not like a fully integrated me that's here. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and so like tricking means I'm not again being my well, I'm not fully embodying that part.
Yes.
The full, inflated expressive heart self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that comes up around that too is like I wonder if there is a collective like if a heart last has a direct relationship to how we value ourselves. Of just like I don't like that this is the phrase that comes up, but just like what we bring to the table. I don't mean in terms of like companionship or attraction or whatever the self-prize word is, but just like this is like why I'm valuable. This is what I should be valued for.
That's a good
because I know value gets attributed to 3 a lot, but it's because 3 can outsource it too much, but it still is like 4 and 2 still know exactly why they should be valued. Yes. There's a preoccupation in all of that. 4 is I'm valued because I'm unique. 3 is I'm valued because I'm excelling and because I embody your values. And then 2 is value because I'm full of love and kindness and compassion.
Power of love.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and also the 2 hexad types are always stemming off of the attachment type at the center anyway.
That's right. It's all about me.
So I think that was a big deal for me.
Baby.
What you're talking about was like an unintentional benefit of doing this kind of exercise is that maybe as a social blind and heart last, it's hard to hold on to what do people value about me? And even it's not even necessarily that question, what do people value about me? It's like, what do I value about myself? Like, what do I think is valuable about myself? And so there's a certain level of being able to see yourself, paint this portrait of who you are, that you're like, oh, I really like that portrait. And so you're not like sitting there waiting for like putting all this weight on sexual attraction that, oh, I want to be wanted. And it feels like a nebulous sense of I want like wanting to be wanted, but not necessarily knowing the portrait of what is wantable about you.
Yeah.
And so I think getting clear on that sort of thing is like, oh yeah, this is the genre. This is who I am. Like if you were
genre, I think it's a heart word too. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the genre of who I am. This is and in a way it makes it easier for me to say, oh yeah, if I'm this, then this is why I have these shame reactions to aligning with these, or being in the same room with these people. Like it makes it really clear what type of person you're curating, what type of things you're into, what type of people you want to be around. And so I thought it's a very important exercise that made me more settled in myself in a way where it's like it's easier for me to my yeses and nos are much clearer to me because I have a better sense of the genre of Emeka,
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so that's what I've been thinking about.
That's cool.
That's great.
Yeah, I feel like it's been I feel like there's a ton more to tease. Oh, here's something else I wanted. There's so much. Yeah. Here's one thing I wanted to say too is like and this is just like for the listeners or whatever. I don't want anybody to think that we are conflating heart the heart center with like kindness or compassion or empathy
right.
even. And none of that, because there are still going to be like 2s and 3s and 4s that are like evil and fucked up and like don't give a fuck about you. Like it is the narcissism of the heart type. Okay, so I'm interrupting myself to just say like You're always
calling
seen
John a narcissist.
Well, there's a narcissism in the heart center, you know, and like, so yes, just but the narcissism in the heart center comes from like it being kind of a me fixation, right? Like, who am I? Am I being affirmed? Am I affirming myself? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
And figuratively.
Yeah. And so I've always seen that as like, I've always attributed it to like, I don't know, just seen that as something I don't need to cultivate because I'm just like, that's narcissistic. I don't need to do that. But the cost of not having done that is in a certain way, not like cultivating my sense of self, not cultivating my own self-image, and kind of like leaving it up to other people.
Healthy self-interest.
Healthy self-interest.
Totally. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, and I find myself that I'll express certain, like I'll catch my own expressions of my own values, but they're happening in real time and I'm not really collecting them. I'm not like organizing them. And so it feels like maybe when I listen to myself on one of these pods or videos that we've made, it's like I'm seeing myself as someone else would see me. And I'm feeling like, oh, I didn't realize I felt that strongly about that. You're seeing like a reaction where you're like, oh, that's, you're just reacting in real time, but you haven't actually reflected on the severity of that reaction.
You're right.
It's interesting.
So it's like, I really don't like this person actually. Like I like, should think about, why that is, where is that coming from? There's like intense reaction to this that I haven't processed where that, intensity is coming from.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot.
That sort of thing. Now, this is an interesting topic. I think we talked about this briefly at the live pod for like 10 minutes. We talked about the different, somebody asked a question about it. So we talked about this before.
Yeah, I think it was like our like sensory impressions of what they each feel like.
Yeah.
And not like the experience of it.
This is really nuanced.
Yeah.
It is. All right, man.
All right. See y'all next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right, bye guys. Peace be with you too.
تعال الفراق وانت الغريب تقولي ارجع يا غالي تعال الفراق